Welcome back to Who Doesn't Have a Podcast. We've reconvened this week to talk about the penultimate episode of Series 15, Wish World. What did you think? What did you think of this episode? So just to lead into it a little bit, I think this is a classic, more so than last series, even though last series was quite epic. This is a classic, Russell T Davies, balls to the wall, throw everything at it, Doctor Who finale. Over to you.
Yeah, no, I would 100% agree with that. It has all of the two-parter finale energy, which, to be fair, I thought the one last series did with Sutek. You know, that whole kind of Susan Triad reveal. Who was in this episode? Didn't see that coming.
Yeah.
Had absolutely no foreknowledge about that. Quite a nice little cameo appearance, I thought there, because didn't deter from the main story, but was actually just, I thought, quite well done. But again, that sort of reveal and kind of build up for the final episode. So for context, I have literally just seen this. So I am coming out of this 15 minutes fresh. So in terms of, I might miss a couple of things just in terms of having time for it to settle. So might come in with stuff if I'm missing a major plot point or anything. I thought it was bonkers. I thought it was nuts. It was completely nuts. And there was a lot of things I liked about it instinctively. There were also some things I was not keen on. That's not to say that I didn't enjoy it. It's just, it was very much like, this for me was quite a Marmite episode. Like, some things were really good and other things I was not. It just didn't land for me. It was... I suppose the first thing I should say off the bat, and just get this out of the way, is it's been a problem for me with the last two series, is 45-minute runtimes. It's just not enough. I just feel like it's not enough. I feel like there's been moments in every episode. There's been like a good bait. There's been like a good quarter an episode, and then there's like a potential 10-minute period where everything just is on the verge of collapsing or crashing, or just kind of like not making sense. Do you feel that?
I'm glad you said that. I felt exactly the same way. So what I feel about this is I also really enjoyed it. I do have mixed feelings. I'm exactly the same as you, where I feel like it's not long enough. So let's take the Rani, for example, this new version of the Rani. How much time realistically have we spent with this new version of the Rani? How much screen time has she had before now they're in, spoilers for later, but before now they're introducing the omega of it all as well. Like, so take take the Rani specifically. Like, have we had enough time with this character, flashing her out, like building her up? I just don't think we have.
Do you know what's interesting? Like, so I very, very briefly watched the episode and then just did some very, very quick sort of just kind of afterthoughts from people on the internet. And something I saw was apparently Russell has said that they're working this version of the Rani as being maybe a slightly different relationship to the Doctor. They're possibly changing some Gallifrey lore sort of ideas and things, and kind of reevaluating that dynamic of not being enemies, not being sort of frenemies, but just kind of possibly being even lovers. I mean, that was a wild bit of dialogue that came in there, which ultimately made me think, like, how long is the Doctor's X list? Because really, at this point, it's a massive red flag. I feel like if the Doctor comes up on any app, you'd be swiping. You'd be like, yeah, like outwardly fantastic, and then you'd be like, hang on, what's this whole list? What are all these? What do you mean?
If the Doctor was on a dating
what's a vindicator?
If the Doctor was on a dating app, if you were to swipe no on that dating app, then it could just be a different incarnation of the Doctor next.
Reality just breaks.
Or the Doctor's photos on the dating app would just be a different incarnation each time. So you're like, which one are you?
If you reject the Doctor on a dating app, that's it. Like, everything just crumbles. You get wiped out of existence because he was only meant to come up on that dating app at that particular moment. It's basically
that was his grand plan.
You know what? If Turn Left was made today, it would be made on a dating app.
Swipe left. Because swiping left is I mean, I haven't been on a dating app in a long time, but swiping left is no, right? So yeah.
I wouldn't know. Yeah. What are you talking about? It is, yeah. But I to follow on what you said, like I just feel like it would be so much nicer to flesh these characters out and give them that time. Because even if you look back at like a classic like series 3 with John Sim and the reveal of the Master and Utopia and blah blah blah, I felt like we got to know his character infinitely better in probably like the same amount of time. And you know, like
did we though? This is the question I wanted to ask you. Did we have the same amount of character with same amount of time with someone like John Sim's Master? Is it just that we're older and we're more sensitive to it? That's what I can't work out. Like, I can't work out whether I feel like it's rushed now because I'm older, or whether it's always been like this.
No, you possibly, quite possibly. And I think as well, obviously we've had that amount of John Sim lore that's come since. So it could feel potentially like that in it, that kind of forms your opinion of the episodes, and like the weight that it carries. But I do feel like, I don't know, like even scenes, like I think, I can't remember what episode 12 was called after Utopia, but it's the scene where John Sim and the 10th Doctor are having that conversation over the phone, over like speakerphone. And it's the bit before John Sim's like, run for your life. And they have that whole bit of dialogue. And I just felt like I learned so much about the character in just that one scene.
I was thinking that exact same thing, you know. I was thinking about that scene because he's talking about
the drums, isn't he?
He fills him in. He fills the Doctor in on the Doctor and him have a really intimate conversation about how Gallifrey isn't around anymore and all that stuff. So yeah, it really works. And that's what I was begging from this. One of my main criticisms from this episode is that the Doctor needed to wise up and remember who he was, like way before it actually happened.
I don't understand why. I think this is because I'm coming fresh off the episode, so I've probably missed something. But I don't understand why. Obviously, like the Vindicator was used to create Wishworld along with Desiderium. Is it the baby, the god baby?
Yeah.
So like it basically amplified the powers. The Vindicator amplified the powers of that god to enable Conrad to build like a full world. Like, so it was more than your typical genie wish. It was like, because of the power of billion suns, you are able to form this whole world, right? That I get, I understand that. But it's the bit with the Doctor losing his memories or being part of it, and how Belinda became part of that when they... And there's other questions I've just got off the back of that now, which is like, I think the Rani's a brilliant character in Doctor Who lore. I love the fact that she is a scientist, and that like when there was a moment in this episode where she brings out the seal of Rassilon, and I was like, oh, we're going to be getting some science tonight, boys. I thought there was going to be a whole science, but it was, but which makes it really interesting to like put a character of pure fact with the kind of God concept. I think that is quite an interesting sort of balance. But I just don't, I'm just struggling to understand, like, yeah, the Doctor and not having the memories, and then Poppy will come on to Poppy, I'm sure. But it's like, yeah, I'm still kind of swimming with it in my mind. I'm trying to make sense of, because the other question I have is, obviously I understand plot and I understand kind of getting to a reveal over a series, but did this whole scheme need to happen? Because surely if the Rani's intention was to release Omega from the Underverse, and I really enjoyed the reference to the Underverse because that was a John Pertwee episode, I think. But it's like to be able to release him from that. Like, did it need the whole Doctor involvement, or like because I presume like the Rani has been following the Doctor pretty much everywhere, right? Which assumes that she has her own TARDIS or a way of time travel. So why couldn't she have done it? Why does she need the Doctor? She's been creating... I know, all right, she didn't have the Vindicator, but you know what I mean? I'm just confused.
From what I understand, I'm not sure if the Vindicator is involved in this bit, or maybe the Vindicator channels. So what she needed to create was, from what I understand, mass doubt across the world. So she needed everybody to doubt the life that they were living, and then that doubt accumulated, maybe with the Vindicator involved. I can't remember. Cracks open the sort of barrier to the underworld. And the Doctor specifically there is a line about how a Time Lord's doubt is like the biggest doubt of all or something. So that, you know, that's really powerful. So she needed all of that doubt together to crack open. And in answer to why she couldn't have done that to herself, obviously she needed to form the plan, and she wouldn't have had any doubt involved with like what was going on. So yes. And also, from what I understand, she's not trying to free Omega. She's trying to find his body, I think.
There's been a reference to that in the
yeah, she's trying to use his. Have you seen the trailer for next time?
I'm very, just before I came on, it's like 10 seconds time, isn't it?
The trailer for next time actually reveals, there's a line of dialogue that reveals what her actual plan is, and that's to rebuild Gallifrey, which I actually think is quite neat. Like I do like that as a series arc, because she, like you said, she is a scientist. She's got this great mind. She wants to rebuild her homeworld, which I think is quite interesting. But yeah, so what they've set up, I think, for next week is the Rani wants to find Omega's body, and apparently his body is going to sort of unlock something to rebuild Gallifrey. But then obviously the question is, Omega's obviously going to be alive, isn't he? So there's going to be some sort of.
What's interesting is how the law changes, because I thought, like, and it still might be the case, that the whole thing with the children was going to be some sort of timeless child scheme, in terms of when we saw Tecteun doing the whole let's evolve the regeneration process, let's do that. I thought it was going to be something of working on that, and the sort of the bi-generation thing sort of just got, they were like, we bi-generated, and I was like, okay, cool, fine. But I thought there would be like some sort of other reason behind it. What's interesting with Omega is, even I'm a bit like, Omega's like a huge villain in Doctor Who lore. I would say lore because in the episodes we've only seen them, I want to say, twice, really.
And he's the first Time Lord, isn't he?
Well, this is what's interesting, because the first time we saw Omega, I could be wrong about this, but from what I remember, is the first ever special, which was a special called The Three Doctors, which was, I don't even think it was William Hartnell, because he might have died by that point, but it was another actor playing him, Patrick Troughton and John Pertwee, and it was like the Three Doctors, and Omega was like the big bad. It was like the first time they'd ever been seen, but it was the whole thing of like, we need a big villain, we need something that is like a thing to the Doctor, and it's like, this is the first Time Lord, and he's got like a whole gold suit. You've probably seen it, and it's got the big sort of pyramid head thing, not to be confused with Silent Hill for any fans out there. But it's like it's that whole thing going on, and that's fine. But it's like, he hasn't really been in Doctor Who a lot beyond that. So really, like, this is a villain who's powerful in lore. And what's interesting is if they are the first Time Lord, but now we know that the Doctor is basically the one who kickstarted the entire Time Lord race by having the secret regeneration. What does that mean? Because that would arguably mean like the Doctor's essence or state is far more powerful than any other Time Lord, because of that being the secret to unlocking everything. But Omega is like he's like the Time Lord. He's basically like, I don't know. He basically got exiled by the other Time Lords for being too dangerous and too kind of like rebellious. So it'll be interesting to see how that dynamic plays, because I guess in some senses he is a Time Lord and he is a scientist.
Cool. So the way that I understand Omega is, he was a notable sort of Time Lord engineer, one of the founding fathers of Time Lord Society. And his like notable act was that he invented or provided the power source to create time travel. Yep. So until that point, the Time Lords weren't technically Time Lords; they were like, lords. and Omega was the person who sort of like spearheaded the whole time travel. But then he was transported to the antimatter universe, what I'm reading here, through his invention, like this thing like transported into the antimatter universe, and then he felt trapped and abandoned by the Time Lords. And then in the Three Doctors, that's when the Doctor makes it to the antimatter universe, and that's when we first meet Omega, I believe. So
Yeah,
so now we're at this point where is Omega still in the antimatter universe by the
well,
time this
yeah,
story, the reality war comes along, and the Rani has tried to split open reality so she can sort of get his body. I mean, I assume she presumes he's dead, and then get his body and then do some trickery to reinvent Gallifrey. What the main criticism I've got about all of this is I think that's great, but it kind of frustrates me a little bit that we're talking so much about Omega when we were only reintroduced to the Rani, who hasn't been on screen for, 20, 30 years. Last episode, like it all feels too much, too fast for me. I'm like, there's loads of stuff going on with loads of characters. How do they possibly pay it off?
There's so many. Yeah, I totally agree. So many characters, so many people to consider. Mel out of nowhere. I mean, not out of nowhere, but it's like that's someone. It's like who's kind of been brought back. One thing I'm going to come back onto your point because I want to address it, but just starting quickly to say while I'm on that, actually thought this was one of Ruby's strongest turns.
Yes.
I genuinely really, I don't know what it was about this particular performance, but there was just something quite grounding and immediately relatable to her. And I kind of learned a lot more about her character in like the 5-10 minutes she was on. I don't know why. I just felt like I did. I just felt like it was a really strong, it was
It's
a
quite funny
strong
that
case for
it's
Ruby.
quite funny that we get another scene of Ruby's mum turning on her. That's happened like 3 times now.
Yeah, I
Ruby's
know.
mum just got out of it. There's a rumor that I read earlier today that this series was actually retooled to include a new companion. Because one of the criticisms is that throughout this series, Belinda hasn't had much to do. And a theory is that actually
Yeah.
Ruby was supposed to be a second series companion, but then they retooled it last minute for reasons.
I did
I don't know
think,
if that's true.
yeah, I did think Belinda was a little, well, I don't know if she was a bit sidelined in this episode because she was in it. I just felt it wasn't a particularly interesting episode for her. But
Yeah.
but going back to the Omega thing, I agree. I really like what Archie Panjabi is doing with the Rani. I think it's like it's teetering on like cartoony evil, but it's kind of falling on the good side of that.
Mm.
And it's interesting, obviously, like it's fine to take the relationship into different areas. Like, we were lovers, were we? Were we doing all these things? But then actually, like relating back to what you were saying about doubt aspect, then I guess that makes sense. If she's plotting doubt into the Doctor's mind to be like, did we? Who am I? What's this? Everything,
That's a good point.
So,
Mm.
so actually, like now that I think about that, that probably all kind of makes sense. I just feel like there's a lot I enjoyed, and it's obviously like it's beautiful. Like most of the series has been amazing, like amazingly shot, and the visuals. I don't think the visual, even though the reality it was quite something, I still don't think it lived up to last week's visuals with that the bodies floating up. That was
That was
insane.
amazing.
That was
I wasn't
incredible.
here. I wasn't on that podcast record, but I did want to
Yeah,
mention that because you mentioned it in the podcast. That
yeah,
specific shot of the roof blowing and then all of I mean, it was horrible. All of the attendees being sucked out into space was one of the darkest things I've ever seen Doctor Who do.
yeah.
But it was mad. It was incredible. I was watching it like that is
Yeah.
dark
In
for this
in an
show.
episode about Eurovision, did not expect. Did not
Yeah,
expect.
exactly.
But it was yeah, it was great to see, and obviously it looks beautiful. And I think that I've just come off watching the episode now, so I haven't had time to sort of compose my thoughts. I'm worried about the finale. I can't lie, I am worried about it. I just feel like similar to you. I've just got a horrible feeling it's going to be a mess or a bit of a mess, and like purely because there's a lot because has it been confirmed to be 45 minutes the last episode? All I
So
can go off. All I can go off is the back of what they did to Sutek last series, where Sutek is
mm,
like a big villain, and it was like sorted and solved inside 15 minutes, which is fine. I get it. It's telly. You need to like these stories need to zip along, and I'll never forget like Matt Smith once did an interview where he was talking about learning lines for the character, and he was like David Tennant had apparently said to him like learn all of your lines on the Sunday. because like obviously this character, everything's got to be done in such a short amount of time for like a TV cut, that it's like there's so much exposition and there's so much stuff you have to go through that you just have to whiz through it. And I do understand that. Like I do get that, like why that's the case. But I just wish, especially when you're introducing fans, new fans as well, to like these big lore characters, like I just wish you'd take your time with it, because I also think I think it undermines them. Like a villain like Sutek, like yes, they did the reveal and they did the whole, the images back to the show in the day, and they did the same with the toy maker, and they've done so with the Rani just now with those brief pictures of Kate O'Mara, and like that's great, but I just wish they would not rely solely on those reveal stock footage pieces and actually give the opportunity for these like lore heavy characters, because they deserve to have their stories told, because they're great, like that's what's so amazing about Doctor Who, is you can draw upon this 60 years worth of like lore, and some of it works and some of it really doesn't, and like we're not going to revisit the fact that the Doctor's half human in the TV movie. There's some bits that you just ignore because you have to, but there are some bits that you do take, and it would just be really nice to see them expand on it. And you know what, maybe they will in other series, The Land Between the War and the Sea. They might expand on the Sea Devils there and give you like proper backgrounds and kind of interesting stories. It just feels like, I don't know, I'm just kind of gearing myself up for a bit of a, I don't want to be mean because I'm not a writer. Do you know what I mean? I'm not, so I couldn't write an episode of Doctor Who, but I just feel like it's going to be very, whatever that is.
I've got a feeling that this two-part finale is going to be best viewed in one sitting, as a sort of 2-hour event piece. I worry. So to put your mind at ease a little bit, the runtime for the finale is 1 hour and 6 minutes, which is good. That's just short of like a feature length, about 25 minutes short of like a standard feature length 90-minute film, which is good.
Yeah.
Include this part on top of it, and you're looking at probably like a 2-hour story. Can they tick off all of the things that they've set up? Probably not. I really don't think so. How are you going to pay off the relationship between the Doctor and the Rani, and then you bring in Omega into it and all of the loose threads, and you've got your companions to worry about, and you've got the space babies, fucking Poppy, like all this stuff. Like how do you do it in a satisfying way? I don't know if they can.
Who's Poppy, Mike? Sorry, go on, finish your thought and then we'll come back to
the Empire of Death last year, the series 1 finale, there's so much of that I really liked, but I agree with you. The Sutek of it all, so much of Sutek I really liked. All those images of Sutek on the TARDIS and being wrapped around the TARDIS I thought was so clever and so well done. But the actual resolution, whilst well done, was rushed and forced. And I think we're probably going to get a similar thing here. One final thing before we talk about Poppy is I think there is going to be... So we don't know who's playing Omega yet, assuming Omega's alive, even if it's just a dead body. I think it's going to be someone entirely unexpected. I think there might be like a shock cameo kind of situation with Omega, but we don't know that yet. We don't, and I reckon it's Ryan Gosling.
Who would you cast Omega as? Who would you
cast? Ryan Gosling. So do you remember when Ncuti Gatwa was working on Barbie when do you remember when he was cast? And then Ryan Gosling was wearing like a Doctor Who t-shirt. Can you imagine if they drafted him in?
Do you know who else was in the Barbie movie? Rob Brydon.
Yeah, he was.
Do you know what I thought you said? I didn't hear you say Ryan. I thought you said Brian, and I was like, oh my god, Brian Blessed. I mean, Brian Blessed as Omega wouldn't be the worst shout just because of that. Do you know what I mean? How big a personality he is? It won't be.
I'm pretty sure he's been running to be the Doctor at one point as well. At some point in his
probably. It will be interesting. Although I did hear a rumor that it might be voiced by Gabriel Wolfe, who was also the voice of Sutek, which would be interesting. But we'll have to see. Poppy.
So Poppy's turned into a really big deal, right? Because when the Doctor's being thrown into the underworld or whatever it's called, the underdimension, he says he's trying to shout to the Rani, isn't he? And he says something about Poppy. He says
He
Poppy's
says to
real
her,
or something.
he says to her, Poppy, he says to her, Poppy is real. She's my daughter. Don't you know what that means? So Mike, what does it mean? I'm interested because obviously if it is his daughter and it's come about from the wish world, because obviously this would have had to have been wished to have been happened. So it's almost, are we saying it's the child of the Doctor and Belinda, if not even like organically, but because of the byproducts of the wish world? Does that mean it's like a Time Lord half human hybrid, sort of Donna Noble type situation?
But Poppy isn't a product of the wish world. Poppy's a space baby, isn't she? Like we've met Poppy before in series 1.
Yeah.
So Poppy is real, right? So the a walking, talking baby, which I've got huge problems with. But Poppy is real, and also if Poppy is actually the Doctor's daughter, then that means Poppy is Susan's mum.
Yeah. And obviously that's what's interesting because we saw a brief clip to Susan again in this episode on TV, very briefly. Oh, speaking of TV cameos, Jonathan Groff just turned it up like it was nowhere. I mean, that was the thing. Like that was a cool moment, right? It was a cool moment. But again, there's so much to take in from this episode where he's just casually dropping in. He's like, "I love you," and then disappears. And it was like the mini version of Rose Tyler. Do you know what I mean? Just being on that fucking beach.
And I don't think Jonathan Groff's going to actually be in the finale. And do you know what that reeked of? It reeked of. Do you remember the Chris Chibnall episode, Fugitive of the Jadoon, where Captain Jack Harkness just randomly pops up in the middle of the episode? So, you know, Captain Jack Harkness and Rogue are characters that, I mean, Rogue is just a replacement for Captain Jack Harkness, isn't it? Like that. There's no two ways about it. They're the same character essentially.
Possibly,
it reeks of Captain Jack Harkness. I think Graham gets transported to Captain Jack Harkness's ship, and then he wakes up and you hear Jack's voice before you see him, and then it's a bunch of exposition. And then I think Captain Jack says, "Tell the Doctor I'll see her" or something, and then you don't see him again until I think the Christmas episode. It's so similar to that. It's like it's unbelievable.
Yeah. I mean, it was a good cameo. I thought Jonathan Groff smashed it, and it was like oh, it was really not. But again, it's just there's so much going on, and my question is there so much going on because they're trying to sort of put ideas forward for series 3 because series 3 hasn't yet been given the go ahead, and they're like, this is what we've got built, or I don't know. It's interesting. Poppy, that's a good point, a very good point you make about her being real. So it's the idea of like there's this sort of bleeding aspect between reality and wish and doubt and all of these things. I think conceptually this is great. Like I think that the idea behind it I think is amazing, and like the idea that you're kind of getting a different grasp on reality and what keeps reality together. Like I really enjoy that. I just wish they'd taken longer to do it. I think that behind everything I've got to say about this episode, I just wish they'd taken more to do it. Like you say, characters like the Rani and just being able to give them that time they deserve. I mean, the only hope I do have is that from the trailer, the brief trailer to the next episode, it does give the impression that the Rani's still going to feature quite heavily. And obviously you've got Anita Dobson as Mrs. Flood, who kind of and the Rani, but it's kind of like, yeah, it's sort of, obviously there's tension between them, but then also I really enjoyed her little walkout as the police officer when she did that speech. I was like, yeah, that was really good.
She really suited that. She really suited that that outfit. Like you could see her quite high up in the police.
But again, is this why the fourth wall breaks were happening? That seems
again, Jerome. I don't think we're getting an explanation for the fourth wall break.
But that's what I mean. There's so much going on. You don't need to answer everything, but there's so much. It's like, because now they're not doing any fourth wall breaks. They're just acting as characters. And it's like, what was all that about?
Yeah.
And and I'm sure in and about, they'll come up with some reason, and it will be, I just wish more stuff was explained on screen rather than people in like Doctor Who Unleashed. Do you know what I mean? Or behind the scenes or whatever. kind of then explaining stuff. I wish it was done in the episode.
Mrs.
And
Flood is
even
also the Mrs. Flood version of the Rani is also an interesting character because we don't really know her either because her identity wasn't really revealed until last week. So we
yeah,
think we know Mrs. Flood because we've had scenes with her as Ruby's neighbor, as Belinda's neighbor, and then we've had all of these cameos in each episode. But then who she actually is hasn't been really explored. We've had the reveal, but now I feel like we don't know that character either. So it's like it just feels like a bunch of characters that we've only had short
I
scenes with, and
yeah,
it's hard to get invested, is what I mean.
I
I
feel like
think.
one of them's getting killed off. I feel like one
Yeah.
of the Ranis is getting killed off, and I think sadly it's probably more likely to be Anita Dobson.
Yes. Yeah.
But I think one of them is in line to go. Budget cuts. And I also think, well, I suppose that brings us on because I know we need to bear the time in mind here. There's a lot of rumors that Ncuti's going. A lot of rumors. They're starting to build up steam. A lot of people have started making odds and bookies on who's going to be the next Doctor and stuff. Firstly, do you think there's going to be a regeneration? Secondly, do you think that regeneration will happen, as in there will be a new actor revealed, or do you think they might do it on a starts to regenerate and the series ends, kind of as like we don't know who it's going to be yet, but this is for future planning? And I'll come up with a third question. Answer those two fourth, and I'll give you a third one in a sec.
Lots of rumors about next week's episode. This week's episode is quite hard to talk about, really, isn't it? Which I think we've discovered over the past half an hour because it needs to be seen as a whole. But there are lots of rumors for the next episode. In answer to your question, I do think that Ncuti's is going to regenerate, and I don't think it'll be open ended. There's been articles recently that whatever happens with the Disney deal, the BBC are carrying on with Doctor Who, and Russell T Davies has scripts for the next 2 years. I don't think so. I don't think it's going to be an open ended regeneration. I think they've cast the next Doctor, and finally, in modern Doctor Who, we're going to see a regeneration with the main character where we don't know who's been cast as the next Doctor, which I think is quite good. I think that'll be a great surprise to find that out. So I think he will regenerate, which I'm a little bit upset about because I think he's been really good, and I do wish these actors would stick around longer. But I do think they've cast the next Doctor, and that we'll see the next Doctor. But then we'll have 2 years till the next series of Doctor Who, is what I think. Yeah,
that's cool. I think there will probably be a regeneration.
And it better not be a bi-generation. I swear to fucking God. What is the point of bi-generation?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think I could live with bi-generation, but then the Rani bi-generated, and it was like, right. Because then I thought like there must be some reason behind it. As in, like, I thought it'd be like, right, the Rani, the reason bi-generation has
Invented,
happened
yeah.
is because the Rani has, like, you know, evolved some form of regeneration, Time Lord science to be able to split it. And I was like, that would have been great. But I'm not convinced that is the case. Maybe it's just natural evolution of the Time Lords. It's just not the human race. It's like this is the next stage of their involvement. I do think he will regenerate. I think it possibly will be not. I think it might be closed. So that's where I differ from you. Purely because I think it might leave it on a, especially with the new spin-offs coming and other shows, like as a kind of proper cliffhanger of who we don't know, like what's going to happen to the Doctor. Or maybe it's a case of like they might, which they've done in the past, not have a regeneration and then announce the actors leaving. Because I mean, you look at Sylvester McCoy, didn't get a regeneration until the television movie. Or you look at like other Paul McGann into the War Doctor until Night of the Doctor, and then vice versa into Christopher Eccleston. So there might be it might be that that's the case. I don't think it will be, but there's a chance. The other question, of course, is Joe Martin.
Yeah.
Some people have been thinking, could it be that Joe Martin's going to come in? Because there seems to be a lot of people kind of banking on a new female Doctor, by all accounts, or whoever it is. But it would be interesting if it was Jo Martin's Doctor because of the relation. And actually, when they did when the Doctor regained his memories in Wishworld, she was in there. She was included, I think, after just before Tennant and after Jodie. So obviously people are wondering on that front. I don't know. I agree with you though, going back to something you just said about Wishworld. Like, it's fun, and ultimately that's enough. Like, because I watch Doctor Who because I find it fun, and that's ultimately like what I want from it. But it did feel like a series of reveals rather than an episode. Like, I couldn't confidently tell you the plot of Wishworld. I just couldn't.
No.
I have no idea what to say to you. I could say to you, like, because like the first 5 minutes happened, and the whole kind of like the Doctor in his suit looking very sharp with the bowler hat, and then Ruby at the door. I was like, I'm really into this. Like, this is, I love the setup. Like, this is, you know, I love to see where this goes, how it comes out. And then like the rest of it, I was like, I'm enjoying it, but I have no idea. I don't know what to tell you.
And I think you might be a bit like me.
What are the dinosaurs?
I think that's all answered next week. But this is the thing. I was literally pausing this episode as it went along to check the runtime, because you might be a bit like me. I was watching this, but I just had this impending thing, like there's no way that this is going to get paid off in time, like for it to feel like a satisfying episode of Doctor Who. You know,
even the Rani was in a rush. She's like dragging the Doctor all over the place. Go, come and see this. Come and see this. The episode's going to finish in 5 minutes. You can come and see this. And there was even that line where I literally, about a minute before, I said to myself, because obviously I talk to myself because that's what Doctor Who fans do. And I said, I was like, this has got so much exposition in it. Like, this just feels like it's so rushed. And then she had the line about, and this isn't just exposition. And I was like, Russell.
But that annoys me, because that doesn't, in my mind, that doesn't qualify the exposition. Like, just winking at it and saying there's a reason for this exposition, and especially when the reason for the exposition doesn't make any sense anyway, or like it doesn't do much for me. It's just like,
the thing is, it might make sense, like you say, once you've seen the next episode. But the problem is with the way the show is formatted, it's just like confusing, because like, for example, I used to watch Doctor Who with my family, and they were fans, and then they just got to a point for them where there was too much going on. There were like too many plot lines, and like if you weren't a regular viewer, and I just wonder, like, if you watch that as a one-off episode, you might go, oh, that was brilliant. Do you know what I mean? As in, like, I had a lot of fun, and it looks great, and I love the reveals and the drama and the twists and stuff, and that is all great. But in terms of the plot, like, there's so much else on TV and stuff. It's like, if you can't get gripped, I think it might be difficult for some people.
I think they're banking on you. They're banking on you watching it again, because there's no doubt in my mind that Wishworld is really tightly written. But I think it would reward a second visit. But none of us have time. That's the point. Like, you just don't have time to watch these things over and over again. It's not like when
maybe
we were
that
kids.
Maybe that was the subliminal messaging with the giant clock in this episode. Make time.
Fucking make time. Make time, damn. Right, looking ahead to next week. So, the interesting thing about next week is they're not dropping it on iPlayer early. I think there are probably some major things that happen next week, as you would expect from a finale. But all of the rumours and the information that we've been getting recently, that Doctor Who's been cancelled, or Ncuti Gatwa's been axed, or this gets my back up. Every week, The Independent, GB News, the Daily Mail run stories that Doctor Who's cancelled because it's too woke. Doctor Who isn't too woke. And they say that the storylines are too fucking woke and no one gives a shit anymore. And you're like, you're just making it up. Like, Doctor Who is still an incredibly solid sci-fi show that has some of the best sci-fi ideas that you can see. Like, look at the Midnight sequel this year. Well, like, what an episode of like sci-fi TV. It's just all bullshit. Sorry, that they should just stop doing that, because it's pointless. Anyway,
it's not.
So there's loads of rumours swirling around that it's been cancelled, or it's been put to rest, or Ncuti Gatwa's been axed. All of these things. So I think next week's episode is interesting because of the conversation around. I think it's interesting anyway, but the conversation around it is kind of elevated a little bit. Like, what is going to happen at the end of the episode? We really don't know. Even when Jodie Whittaker was regenerating, David Tennant had been filming the 60th special, so there were questions about whether Jodie Whittaker, the 13th Doctor, was going to regenerate into the official 15th Doctor who'd been announced, or David Tennant. So people still had an idea. This time round, we don't know. We don't know anything. All we've heard is endless rumors that there's going to be a regeneration. So I think that is quite exciting.
Yeah, I'll be interested as well to see. I don't think anything is going to be retconned because I don't think Russell's the sort of guy to do that. But it'd be interesting to see like how this gets taken back. Because I know we were talking separately about Gallifrey and how Gallifrey being destroyed again is really annoying.
It's so annoying.
But it was like it will be interesting to see like how they remedy this, because if the Rani's sort of design is to rebuild Gallifrey in her image and kind of with new science and new technology, it could be really, really interesting for like starting where the Doctor goes from here. I just going yeah, I'm excited, and that's a good place to be. I'm excited, but I am also anxious just because I'm going off last series. I'm just going off last series and how that, because I was disappointed with how they did the solution, you know, after everything.
There's
But,
another
you
big
know,
rumor that I want your thoughts on. Sorry, there's another big rumor.
sorry.
I don't. So in the trailer for next series, Unit is seen bringing out a crate. So I think Unit are fighting those skeletal monsters that are sort of stomping around London, and they bring out something from their vault. And there's a big rumor that it's Missy. So there's a big rumor that the hand with the red nail polish that picked up the Master's tooth from the giggle is Kate Lethbridge Stewart, because apparently she was wearing red nail gloss in that episode. And there's a theory that Unit has been holding the Master in their sort of undervaults. And Michelle Gomez, alongside Joe Martin, who plays the Fugitive Doctor, was at the premiere for this series. So there's a rumor going around that Missy's going to be in the next episode, which I think would be an amazing callback to Stephen Moffat, Peter Capaldi era. I think Missy is a character that's primed to make a reappearance in Doctor Who.
I would love that because I love Michelle Gomez, but again, that's something else.
But we know her though. We know her.
No, we do. But like, where do you put focus? Do you put focus on Missy? Do you put it on the Rani? Do you put it on Omega? Do you put it on the fact the Doctor's about to regenerate? Do you put it on the fact there are two companions? Who is like, which one of them do you focus on? Do you put it on? Do you put it on Poppy? Do you put it on Conrad, who sort of got like sidelined this week? It's like, don't get me wrong, I love it, but there's so much going on.
Like Yasmin Finney's Rose is back as well.
If Missy was to come back, that would potentially draw focus from the plot of the solution to the episode, unless it's like thoroughly intertwined. And like, don't be wrong, I'd love it. I love Michelle Gomez. I loved Missy. I thought it was like an amazing character. But again, I'm just, how do you fit all this into 45 minutes? That's
it's not.
I know.
No, I know. This one will be an hour.
Yeah. Sorry. It's going to have an extra 16 minutes. That's going to be a world. But,
plus a regeneration. Like these regenerations usually take 5 to 10 minutes. Like that needs to be an actual thing as well.
Yeah. But something I did want to mention, just going back to what you were saying, because I think it is a valid point about the whole Doctor Who being woke thing. I think just get over it, man. And not you, as in like just get over it, Mike. No, but as in just like it's a TV show. Like it's trying to be as like incredibly diverse as it can in its approach, but ultimately like it's still about science, like sci-fi and silly stuff, and like someone who travels in a TARDIS, like in time travel, and there's so many like contributing factors to loads of different elements of our society, and I think that's what's great. So yeah, when people I don't like read any of the articles, ultimately, because I think a lot of these things are designed to get clicks and likes and people just to interact with them, even if it's for good or bad reasons. So I just don't. But ultimately, Doctor Who's fun. I would say most of the time, and it's enjoyable. And even when it's rubbish, even when inevitably the Absorbaloff comes back as one of the Pantheon gods, I will still be here and I will still be watching it.
Oh, that ties it up neatly. All right, then. We don't do reviews on this podcast. Despite Dan wanting us to review every episode, we don't do ratings and we don't really do reviews. We just do discussions because, like we always say, let's see us write a better episode of Doctor Who. I came out of this, from a personal perspective, I came out of this episode feeling it was a bit rushed. That's my general overview, but I still enjoyed it like I enjoyed most, if not all episodes of Doctor Who, to be honest. What about yourself in terms of your overall feelings?
I enjoyed it. I had fun watching the episode. And ultimately, like, that's the main thing. I really loved Archie Panjabi's performance as the Rani. And I thought that I agree with you. I think the whole thing was rushed, but I think she was working really hard with what she was given, and really made some like interesting choices. Like even her bit at the beginning, just like really, she's kind of got this like sort of like really going wanky actor here. But if you would like to compare her to an animal, there was something very snake-like about her. She's quite reptilian, and I really like that. Because again, like reptiles, and it's that sort of science. It's that cold kind of calculating manner to her that I'm really enjoying, but she's also got this flamboyance that kind of adds on top, and I just really like what she's doing with it. And also like it's one of those I tell you something that does, it's not for me in terms of I really like it when the Doctor has a costume. It's like that's their costume. Like I relate that costume to that Doctor, even if it's some fucking celery on the side of your like lapel. Like you like there's a choice, right? And that's your costume. I think something that I have missed is Ncuti having all of these costumes, and I get it. His iteration of the Doctor is like, let's wear all of the costumes. Let's like let's kind of open. Let's embrace. Let's kind of like enjoy the sort of the life cycle kind of aspect. But I do enjoy like them having a distinguishing feature of like costume and personality. And that's something that we've got with the Rani so far. I love her costume, and I love that kind of like that sort of that deep red, that kind of like it just says so much about the character without having to utter a line of dialogue. Like just looking at her, I know exactly the sort of person we're dealing with, and I love that. So
I hope we see a lot more of her in future series. I hope this iteration of the Rani is one that sticks around for quite a while. Unlike
really like her
Sashi
theme
the
as well.
Worm's Master.
I really like her theme as well. And I mean, to be fair, if there's one consistent factor in Doctor Who, if there's one thing I think I would never be able to pick holes in a lot of the time, it's Murray Gold. He's just like he is gold, isn't he? Like all of his music in Doctor Who is frighteningly incredible.
Yeah.
And I genuinely I think like without thinking about it too much, so much of my reactions are based like so many of the scenes that happen in Doctor Who, I feel like are based off my emotive reaction a lot of the time. That is music. So like whether it's a regenerate, like what is it, Valedictorian for Ten's regeneration? If you take that music out, it's nowhere near as impactful. But it's just like he just has this ability to like conjure feeling in you, and incredible.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of Who Doesn't Have a Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe. We talk about Doctor Who weekly. You can join us next week for the review of the finale, which is called The Reality War.